Welcome to Cyber Thoughts, the podcast where we explore cybersecurity through experts in the field. It is my pleasure today to change the format up a little bit. We've got two guests, Dimitry Shvartsman, damn it, and Taylor Margot, who's my partner here. So let's start with you, Dimitry. Let's do origin stories. I'm going to explain who everyone is, and then we're going to dive into the spotlight competition for Black Hat. So, Dimitry, pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. So, Dimitry, as you mentioned, Schwartzman, I've been doing security for close to 20 years now, since we used to call it InfoSec. Then, for some reason, I woke up one day and it was like, oh, you're doing cybersecurity. I'm like, that's a cool name. Why nobody used that when I was starting in this thing? And nobody cared about this, and nobody wanted to do this. And when I was chasing after people with, DLP policies, they were running away from me as if I was a vampire throwing like garlic and stuff at me. So I was an operator most of the
Sounds
beginning
like
of my
Eastern
career.
Europe.
I moved out from Eastern Europe when I was 4. I'm talking about in general people not liking security. It just became
Security.
cool.
We're the fun bunch. Come on.
Yeah, of course. We're also known in the industry as the yes man. We always say yes to everything. Of course.
Of course.
Right? Of course. So I've been everything from incident response to forensics to cyber threat intelligence to critical infrastructure. I'm just skipping the boring parts. And prior to co-founding Prime Security, I spent 6 years at PayPal. And in my last role, I was senior director, leading security strategy and working with some really, really cool people.
Awesome. So we also have my partner, Taylor Margot. Taylor, I actually don't talk about Lytical ever. So why don't you quickly give your background and maybe mention the firm we work at?
All right. So, Lytical Ventures, as Dimitri might have alluded to, we're venture investors, primarily seed, doing cybersecurity and AI. I come to this story from a legal background, also people known as yes
I'm so
men.
sorry.
I know. It'll be wild if we can get through this without disagreeing on everything. Yes, I was at a firm called Wilson Sonsini for almost a decade. I did VC and M&A. Tally up all the numbers and you get to 21 billion in deals that I managed. But I took the very typical path of starting an AI company to deal with my burnout issues. So I did that in
Before it was
2019. Before it was cool. In fact, I wish it was cooler. Lucas has pegged me on now. I always have the ability to be both too early and too late on deals. Started generative AI company in 2019, Keys AI, incredible ride, wrote it for 5 years. Lytical invested in my company, got to know the guys and came on here over a year ago. And now have the pleasure and honor of getting to work and coach founders like Dimitry and get them on the big stage at Black Hat.
All right. So I'm gonna set the table here. Black Hat, everyone knows Black Hat. Black Hat has a Startup Spotlight competition. I think this is the 4th year we've done it, 3rd, 4th year. And Dimitri won this year's Spotlight competition. So we're going to talk about A, what that means to the company and Dimitri, and B, how he did it so that if one wanted to apply and win one of these competitions in the future, they'd have a better shot at that. So why don't I jump to Dimitri? Why don't we start with, hey, you just won. Congratulations.
Thank you.
120 companies applied, 4 on stage at the end. We'll get into kind of the mechanics of all that in a minute, but why don't you start with, hey, take a victory lap, man. Like, you just won it. What was that like?
So I think you need to add like this like clapping sound every time you say Black Hat competition or like winning. Yeah, like I feel like there's like some balloons that need to be popping out, but it's a podcast, so you need some sound for that.
I don't have the soundboard handy. We'll get it in post.
There we go. I think that's what you need. It is a phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal feeling because it's not. I mean, yes, it's great to win, but the thing is the acknowledgement of the industry, of your fellow peers across a variety of backgrounds, but all comprise what we call the cybersecurity ecosystem, looking at the problem that you're solving, looking at the solution that you've built, and saying this is innovative. And especially, I think, like the cherry on top of all of it is that it is being done in a very technical setting when it comes to the Black Hat conference. And even more so, it comes in day and age where spinning up companies, just went from I need, four guys in a garage to I need Wi-Fi laptop, about a gallon of coffee, and Chat GPT or whatever, right? So like the barrier went crazy down, and so the fact that through all of this you cut through and people acknowledge, I think that like that moment, that feeling is phenomenal.
Excellent. So let me do the what happened, right? So you win the competition. Um, is it crickets afterwards? All of a sudden, everyone offers you all the money. Like, what happened afterwards?
I did say when Taylor said 21 billion, I was like, hey, can you and I chat for like a percent? Like, I'm not greedy. I'm just kidding. No, things are it made a lot of waves, and it made a lot of waves because there's not a whole lot of, let me rephrase this. There are a lot of different competitions for startups across different areas and within different structures. However, when it comes to the cybersecurity broader ecosystem, we all know that there are two anchors in the year. The first one comes around April, March timeframe, when we all kind of flock to San Francisco for RSA. And then the second one happens not that far after, which is, for some reason, we all like Vegas in August, which that's what we should be talking about. But
I can tell you why. It's because when DEF CON started back in 1994, it was cheap and everyone was not in college. That's why you're in Vegas in August, is
in
because
August.
it was cheap. Yep.
And I respect that, because that's, by the way, that quirkiness, those are the things that actually is what kept me, well, part of why it kept me in the industry for 20 years now. But that's besides the point. But those two anchors are massive. They're massive because that's where the industry gets together, and each conference has its own place and its own weight. And so the recognition, the understanding that at that conference, the company won, it's a whole different perception. It's a whole different understanding. It's not yet another conference. It's one of the conferences. And it's not even one or the other. They're both, at their level for again, for different purposes, but they're both really, really important. And Lucas, to your point, 120 companies applied, right? If it was a small thing, you would have had, 30 companies applied, because that's kind of like the scale, the size of the conference. No, no, no. Everyone who's everyone needs, and they understand that you got to be, if not at both of them, at least at one of them. And when things get more on the technical side, well, then that's more Black Hat, DEF CON kind of experience, right? And so that the magnitude of the event. So it's not just, hey, we won a startup competition. We won the startup competition at Black Hat that gets people going, oh, we should, wait, what are you doing again? And so that kind of conversations that are happening, both on the customer side and on, let's call it, the other side, is exactly kind of, the waves are a lot higher than what I'll personally say, what even I anticipated. Like I didn't foresee that, which is for a young, company, is absolutely everything.
So let's take a quick step back. You talked about these two pillars. We got RSA and we got Black Hat. RSA has had a competition for exactly forever, but Black Hat is new. Did you just automatically know about the competition? Did you assume that there was one? How did you hear about the Spotlight competition?
Well, I've been to Black Hat many, many times, right? Which to me, by the way, now that I look back, I go, how come Black Hat didn't have a startup competition up until recently? It's like one of those things where, like, I don't, that doesn't make sense now. So and it's not a situation where we're not going to Black Hat. And throughout also the industry, I knew that there's a startup competition. People were talking about it. Companies were talking about it. So it wasn't that I logged in right to check whatever like the dates or whatnot for Black Hat, and they were like, "Oh, look at that!" There's like, no. I went to the Black Hat website to sign up for the startup competition, and not to look at no offense on who's the keynote speaker, right? Like my priorities were different because I knew it existed, and we were, and it also one more important thing. It wasn't a we have 24 hours because we just realized that we forgot. No, we were prepping for this. It wasn't a fluke. Like we were seriously prepping for the competition.
So
So go ahead,
the
Luke.
entry is a video. It's 5 minutes. So I got to watch 125-minute videos, which is a lot. How did you, and I'll let Taylor kind of drive this piece, but how did you make your video? How did you think about, did you record on a laptop in an afternoon? Did you, I don't know, hire a lighting team? Like, what did you do and how did you think about that?
So we first of all we sat down with a to break down and focus on the script. So the competition does a very good thing where it details the topics that the judges expect to see, and it's kind of like you got to hit those topics. How you do it, that's your problem. But as long as we the judges can understand that you reference to whatever your market, your competition, the problem that you're solving, right? And so we sat down with that in mind and started breaking down and writing our script. And when we recorded, and we were like, okay, this is too long, let's shorten this. So we shortened it, and we were like, great. And so we do the first take, and it's exactly 9 minute long. So it's almost double the time that it needs to be. And we go, okay, I guess we have a bit more work here to do. And so it was.
Now,
I
you
don't
didn't
remember.
just put it in two times and have it be 4.5 minutes, you were done.
I was talking fairly fast, but I also realized that if I go that fast, it might not impress the judges, and so good call on my behalf. So there was a lot of cutting, and I think that's the first real challenge, and that is where do I put the emphasis, which is important because as a founder, to you, all of the categories that are there are important. You know, I want to talk about competition to indicate that I'm not making this up, that there are others who kind of validated this pain point and they exist, and we're in this space together. I want obviously to talk about customers. I want to give exact use cases where customers use us to show that hey, we are solving a problem. Only those three things I can talk for about 35 minutes, right? Double speed. So the first challenge is how do I shorten and still keep my story without losing, the essence of what I'm trying to get across in a 5 minute video, preferably 450, so that it's not super rushed towards the end. Um, and
Well,
regarding the
okay.
recording,
So in writing, we say kill your darlings. What did you cut? Like
oh wow.
that's a lot of stuff. Give us some examples. Remember, we want
So
to. If you're listening to this, I hope that you're trying to think about applying next year. And I want Dimitri to say, like, no, your brilliant idea is not that brilliant. That part should be left on the cutting room floor.
I'll give you one of the hardest ones. Um, the the use cases and the customers that we wanted to bring forward, because
Hmm.
you have a debate and you go, but this customer, comes from this industry, so it's important. But this use case is super interesting because that can be replicated across that entire vertical, and so there's more impact to that. Wait. But for that customer, we solved something super critical, and that saved them so much time. Exactly, and that is the
Yeah.
use case that we're talking about by leveraging AI. And now all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, what do I cut? And so that was one of the hardest pieces that we were trying to leverage. By the way, what we resulted, and hopefully that got across, was we were trying to find one or two examples that hit directly the problem that we're trying to solve in a very simple yet clear way, explain how we did it.
So this
Excellent.
might be a good time to have you quickly say what you guys do. So let's practice this. You've got way less than 5 minutes. What does Prime do?
So Prime is an agentic security architect that integrates at the earliest stage of product development lifecycle, which is the design. So when we sit down and think about what do we want to build, and it could be anything from, we need a new set of APIs, or this feature needs a revamp, and we document it, and we document it in documents and in task management systems. We break it down, so we integrate in that part, and we do these reviews, so security reviews at scale. For the first time, there's an ability to marry between the business objectives, business context, and security requirements, and provide those security requirements in a preemptive manner before development starts, so that developers are not pissed at us by saying, why, like, I'm about to launch this thing and you just did a security review and now I have 4 pages of recommendations. So I'm not happy with you, Mr. Security. How was that? Was
So
that under 5?
awesome. I'm gonna summarize it in one sentence. AI security design review. Did I
See,
get it right?
you even better. Yes.
I got a
My
better one.
entire job is to be reductive. All right, Taylor, you take it away.
Turn the infosec team into the yes man, right? Like
That
we're
pretty
getting
much,
out there early.
or at least find and be aware of all the risk that exists across development, not because developers are doing something wrong, but because they're running as fast as the business requires them, and they don't necessarily think that if they're only changing or adding 6 new APIs, they need to go to security for an approval, which they shouldn't. But security needs to know that these new 6 APIs are now exposing a bunch of data, and it might be okay, but just need the right controls in place. So to balance that visibility gap, that's exactly what we bring to the table.
Okay, so now you've got your application submitted. You've cut it down from 9 to 450, 449 and a half on the dot. What comes next? So you hear back, you find out you're a finalist, and then you start changing it. What was your process? What was your thinking from, okay, we're gonna be on stage, and we'll get into the actual day of and tell people about that. But what was the process from, I know I'm going to Black Hat now to be not just a wholesaler, but actually on stage. What am I going to change? What am I doing?
um, so to all who are listening, and I really highly recommend you apply for next year. After you've submitted it and after you've heard that you got accepted, the next thing you do, you talk to Taylor. Um, that's like, if you ask me for 2 steps, is apply, win the first round, and then go ahead and straight talk to Taylor. Jokes
So
aside,
you're saying you did not do that. You spun a bunch of cycles before you talked to me. I remember I came up and gave you a hug right after you won.
yes,
And you were like, man, like I changed like half my pitch after we talked.
exactly.
So like walk us through that.
So I think that's exactly the essence of what I'm about to say. We've showed the video we've recorded to, and the deck that we built for the presentation to a lot of people. And by the way, those lot of people included, the typical friends and family who are not in the industry and who are looking at it through a fresh set of eyes, and they can be in sales, marketing, whatever, um, because they can ask you questions of understanding or lack thereof that you haven't even thought of, and you go, if they don't get it, then I'm not explaining it well enough. Now, obviously, the judges are, they're from the industry, they understand, they have the background, great, but it needs to be attractive and it needs to be hitting certain spots that it's not too fine tuned to security. It needs to be widely applicable and it needs to attract people to, oh, well, what are you, wait, again, okay, interesting, oh, okay, so that's what, okay, great. So one thing that we did is we talked to people, we've presented, and then once you do that, things that are so obvious to you that you don't even pay attention, others are saying, and here's a prime example to a feedback from Taylor that I didn't even think of, right? Which contributed to change in the demo recording that we did eventually that went on stage was, hey, Taylor, without even, because I had even Wi-Fi problems, remember when we were talking,
I do.
and I kind of explained to you what we're going to do, and you go, okay, but make sure, this is super tactical, but make sure that all those sections in the video where you show how you filter things and you get to that next screen, which is where you have the result that you're interested in. He goes, nobody's going to care about that. Like you gotta, if you need to save time, skip through that, but spend more time on the actual result of the output, because that's what you want to show, because that's the aha moment. And then I went after that call and I looked at the video and I go, wow, I'm spending so much time on stuff that I find interesting and important, like the Uber, advanced filtering capabilities that we've built. And then I kind of overlaid Taylor's feedback. It's like, dude, you have 5 minutes on stage. What are you talking about? Who's going to pay attention to those, to those filtering capabilities? That's not the essence of your product. The essence of the product is the output. And so we sat down with the editor and we redid the video that eventually was shown on stage, where we spend more time, for example, on the outputs so that we can highlight what the product brings to the customer, again, tying it to the value prop versus all the mechanical aspects of how we got there. And that just was a voiceover.
So I feel like I should jump in really fast here. Um, Taylor, you like we didn't do a great job of pointing out why you got to work with all the teams. So you were on stage at Black Hat giving the anti-VC VC pitching. uh, You tell me the name of your talk, but essentially how to pitch VCs. These were terrible people, uh, and storytelling. So give me a quick, because you've been doing this for a couple of years before you joined us. So give your background on why people should listen to you.
Yeah. So I think I've got to sit in all three chairs in sort of the venture community now. I first was in the lawyer's chair, went to hundreds of board meetings and just got to watch. Then I was a founder. And that's when I realized, oh shit, 99.99% of VCs are full of shit. My number one advice to early companies is that the number one mistake early companies make, founders make when fundraising, is taking advice from VCs. And then I get over into the third chair, and it's true. So I've been, probably since 2020, I've been developing and teaching a series called the Anti-VC Guide to VC Fundraising. And much of that tenet is around people make decisions when they've been moved and then look for concrete reasons to validate that decision, rather than looking initially at reasons and then coming to a decision. And so the savvy founder, the savvy pitcher, the savvy presenter can use that to their advantage by first compelling an audience, identifying what's going to make them lean in, basically make a gut decision that they're already in favor and want you. And then they start actively looking, all on the subconscious levels, for reasons to buy you, reasons to buy your product, reasons to buy your company. And so we take that, and then you can walk it around. You can walk it around to presenting at Black Hat. You can walk it around to pitching a company to a VC. You can walk it around to pitching a first customer or 100th customer. These are all storytelling tactics, rather than, I'd say, even, sales or something like that. It probably falls under the broader umbrella, but I would argue that we've been telling stories before we were selling products. So I'd put that up on top. So I basically had the opportunity to work with all of the founders that were the finalists, to tune their shit up, basically take it from the recorded presentation that you sent over the internet to a stranger who you had never talked to, and then get it to be story worthy, get it to be something that on stage people couldn't say no to. And Dimitry pulled that off with flying colors. What Dimitry did not say is that, and now I want to hear you talk a little bit about like the actual day of, but Dimitry won both the popular vote, which was everybody in the audience, times 3. There was more votes than there were people. I won't get into that. And then also the judge vote. But tell us about, I guess, if there's anything from the storytelling component that transferred over, and then how did that carry over to the onstage experience and what that day was like?
So I would actually start from a little bit before that, just to echo the importance of storytelling. I think, and I'm going to say this tenfold to technical folks, because we so are deep in our stuff and we so know it, that there's this perception, which I also had, so I'm no different, that, oh, if I know it so well, I can say it so well, and that's a, that's such a bullshit. You think you can do this, right? And so even before that, I have a very good friend. Her name is Mila, Mila, and she's a professional. Like, her thing is storytelling. That's her business, right? And so before even we submitted the video, I sat down with her and I go, "Hey, here's what we're thinking," and she really like highlighted all the areas where our storytelling wasn't strong enough. And I think, again, and then Taylor did the same thing again pre stage. And it's those pointers that you think you know, and you realize that you don't know how to articulate it in a compelling story way. And so the that connects directly to the day. I've presented many a times, right? I've presented, speaking of, I've presented at RSA a couple of years ago in front of whatever it was, like a 400 people room, and yet I'm all, shaken up and like trying to remember to breathe every single time before I get on stage. And anyone who tells you otherwise either is lying or is lying, like, right? Like, I haven't met like a
Yeah,
speaker, right?
100%.
Like, that is
I get
not
stage
like,
fright. I get
right.
stage fright too.
Like, I've never, and I've met some amazing people, who do this for a living, and they, every single time before they get up, they're like, "Oh, dude, like, they have their ways of prepping." So my way of
You're
prepping,
shaking up bottle of soda, right? Like
it
it's both good and you're about to pop. Yeah.
exactly, and you're hoping that you're gonna pop in the right direction and not just kind of like go all over.
There's
Uh,
always that minute when you get up there, you're like, oh, am I about to? No, no, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that to me, that moment was right after I shook Caleb's hand, and he's like, "Your time starts now," and I go, "Oh wait, oh okay, that's good. Okay, this is where I'm pointing." Um, and to me, the prep mode was for like 40 minutes. Before that, I was walking around with my headphones, as if I was getting, to box for the world champion or whatever. But I was like walking around, pacing, and the thing was, yes, I was practicing what I'm going to say, but more than that, I was trying to very hard and very mindfully prep myself for what I'm trying to get across if I get stuck when it came to my script, which was also a thing, Taylor, that you kind of pointed to me, was don't like talk about it. Don't, be as like in this robotic way of just like hitting the points. And I think that is a very important and oftentimes tricky thing of keeping it a flow versus, oh wait, I forgot point, third slide, subsection C, I was supposed to say this about, the market, and I didn't. It's hitting the main things I want the judges to hear versus repeating that. So to me, the planning phase was getting the story right and getting the message that I need to get across, even if I get off the script, way more important than everything else.
Yeah, there's two things when it comes to presenting styles. One is you've memorized the whole thing to the comma and pause, which is possible, but takes an inordinate amount of time and has very high stakes if it goes off. And the other is that it's different every single time, but you know the information absolutely nails. The latter is superior because, from a storytelling perspective, if you have the story arc, it just flows. You're not focused on the points, you're focused on conveying why you're doing what you're doing and why that matters. And you almost can't get stuck because that's sort of your guiding light there. And you're not focused on, did I remember, as you said, sub bullet C on slide 6? And instead of focusing all those brain cycles there, you're just focused on yourself and the audience.
Which is also, by the way, it's super interesting that you mentioned this because I did try the first method that you mentioned because like I memorized it, and then I remember I was presenting this to someone. I don't know. I think it might have been my wife, and I caught myself forgetting sub bullet C, and then you can almost like track that in your mind. It's like shit. You begin to panic, and they're like, oh wait, but I'm off my time. But I did I, and then you start to mumble, and then it's off, right? So real example.
I find it's like teaching, right? If you're teaching something like I can go up and give a 30-minute lecture on venture capital, whatever.
Right.
And that is super simple. But if I'm introducing somebody and I have to remember like their 3 last jobs they had, that is incredibly hard. And I better have note cards, right? Because like, oh my God. So yeah, if you're just like, oh, I know this, and I'm just going to tell you what I know in some sort of conversational manner, that's easy. If you're trying to like, nope, I need to make sure I say that you worked at CISA for 20 years. Oh man, I'm in trouble.
Well, let's turn this around for 1 second, Lucas. You sat there and had not, seen Dimitry yet on stage. You had seen his pre-application, but what if this is memorable to you when you were in the judge's chair?
Dimitri was really well dressed. No,
I think he was
Oh,
wearing all
by the way,
black. Everybody.
yeah, he was
side
well dressed.
note, but thank you. But side note, Lucas, this is not for the audience's ears, but there's a whole conversation about wardrobe that once we get off this podcast, I'll tell you. It's funny you should mention that, but that's a whole different conversation. Sorry.
I can't wait. I'm sorry to our audience that you're going to miss out on that. So I will say Black Hat is slightly different than many competitions, not all, but many, in that we require a demo. And the demo to me is kind of the key, right? Because you've all been to cybersecurity websites and they all look the same, right? Like you're either like, you can't tell what a company does from their website. These like, we secure things. You're like, okay, great. So watching a demo is such a key piece of it. And you talked about, you edited it, and so, but like your demo is like, oh, I understand exactly what this is, right? I get why it's useful. And the last one, and this one is sort of out of your control once you're on stage, and it's different because let me be clear, you guys are using AI. Everyone is using AI, right? So like AI for cybersecurity. Like I'm attacking a piece of the problem that not everyone else is attacking. There's not 25 or 30 companies that submitted doing what you're doing. So you guys have a unique take on, hey, there's this problem in cybersecurity that isn't being tackled by everyone. And oh, by the way, it's important and it's underfunded or underthought about. Um, and so that to me was what really shined. It was, yeah, I'm using AI, but I'm attacking a piece of the puzzle that most people aren't. And here's why that piece is important. So that's what I saw.
What I'd highlight in there is that it sounds to me like, to bring it back, those are the reasons. By that point, you had already picked. I don't know when it happened. I don't know how it happened, but something about how Dimitri was on stage, either the problem presentation, the beginning with the Death Star, or somewhere along the line, you went from interesting to why is this the winner?
Oh boy. I don't,
And you,
it's
I encourage
interesting.
you
I
to
don't know if
say
it's true or
no.
not,
I have
Interesting.
so many
Interesting.
examples.
but it's a fair point, right? Like part of the problem is you can't I mean, maybe you can know your subconscious mind. I don't know my
No, you
subconscious mind, right?
can't.
So like,
That's the beauty. That's why we attack that. That's the weak link.
yeah, like what's it's hot cognition? Is that the phrase that people use, right? Like
Sure.
there's
Sounds good.
analytical thinking, and then there's like hot cognition, which is like I feel something, therefore I'll rationalize
Ah,
behind why I feel the thing, right? Versus you tick all the boxes and therefore you win.
Look,
Um,
Daniel Kahneman won the Nobel Peace Prize on this theory, or maybe it's the Prize in Economics, excuse me. But basically studying this exact phenomena.
yep.
So, you know, he might have figured a thing out. Where do you want to go next, Lucas?
All right. So I we've gotten most of the stuff I care about in here, but um what specifically, so you changed some of the story arc.
yep.
What was the story arc you were trying to hit? Like give people the story you were trying to tell.
I think the main aspect was I we I don't I won't say struggled, but going back to the storytelling piece, obviously we, like many other companies, if not all of them, adjusted our story from when we started to where we're at now to what we're building and how we're pitching it, and right. And so there were many times where I would get on the call and I would explain what we were doing in so many words, and in my mind, there was like, "Oh, I nailed this one," and I see the glazing on the other person's eye, and it's not because they're not professional. No, they're like this uber technical, being in product security for what I don't know how many years, so they get it. It's just that there was something about how I got the message across that they were like, can you start again? Like, I'm not sure that I'm following." And I'm like, ah, crap. And so the first piece was, how can I? And it's no different than any others are doing it, but it's mostly around, how can I create an understanding of the problem in a aha moment of, I know exactly where you're located in the broader super complex, ecosystem of you know code based products, let's go this way, right? What we're all here protecting. So you're not in the efficacy of findings from like code vulnerabilities. Like, yeah, my whole objective was, look, I'm about to place you where in that space that we're starting from. And the next thing that was important to me was to highlight, look, it's not a new space. It's a space that's been there since the beginning of times. It's just that we had to treat it manually because there was no technological tool to start turning this into something that is more systematic and automated. And so once I was able to place you in that space, I wanted to indicate, look, it's a big problem because here are all the things that can happen and are happening, whether if it's security rework that is impeding and hitting the company's budgets, whether if it's actual incidents. Like, there's such a long tail of things that are happening because of this. So it is the catalyst of a lot of problems. Now, once I got that, let's talk a little bit about how we're solving this. Now, this piece was extremely important, and that is, I did not want to come across, especially at Black Hat, being the technical conference that it is, knowing that the people in front of me can tear me apart if I'm, for a second questioning their technical abilities, right? To me, the explanation had to make sense. Like, this is not voodoo magic. I am not AI for everything and it's going to solve world hunger. Like, this is where we use LLMs. This is why we use it right here. This is how we calculate risk and talk. Like, to me, trying to get that packaged was extremely important so that I will not be perceived as this hand waving persona that talking about a real problem, but the solution is like, he just quickly said 1 plus 1 equals 5, and that was too fast. And so I don't trust even that process. And then eventually, once that has been in place, the intent was, look, here are a couple of examples of real world, how companies are actively using it. And that was also important because the whole AI hype, and there's a lot of yeah, but I don't really trust it. I don't know how to use it. And so to me, it was important to cut through that as well, because like you said, everyone is doing security with
Yep.
AI these days, right? And lastly, it was important to say, here is the existing market size. Here's what we're doing about it. So simplicity was key because it's a complex matter, and it was simplicity not in a way that I don't believe the audience can understand what I'm talking about because it's too technical for them. It was the other way around. The audience can rip me apart if I'm not clear enough that I understand my tech and that my tech actually makes sense.
That is, yeah, that it is a difficult audience for that reason, right? Like you're trying to be high level in 5 minutes, and yet, like, yeah, people want to like, wait, exactly how to use an LLM, and yeah, that's unique to that always. So let me ask a very focused question, and then we'll kind of go broad things and wrap it up. But what are the, you know, you used an editor, you said, like, what are the things that you felt elevated that piece of it? What are the, if you said, oh, I'm gonna do this again, who would you hire? Not who, but like, what are the pieces that you feel like, yeah, that's a must have, and no, don't waste your time on that.
So 100% a function that helps analyze storytelling. 100%. Um, Sitting down and building a script, I don't believe you need to hire anybody to do that. If you
Mhm.
can't do that, then you have other problems. But it's only you. When I say you, right, the founders or whatever, like
Yeah.
that need to do that because only you know how to take this apart and put it together that it makes sense. Um, Filming, I don't think you need, on one hand, the whole shebang with like the lights and everything. You do need a professional that can find the right angle, that has like even like the whatever the microphone, because at one point you were trying, because we all have pronunciations, we all have, some of us have accents or whatever, and when you're not hitting, and it could be not because you're not saying it right or because you don't know the language, because just at the time you had shitty microphone, and when you said something, nobody understood what it says, and to you in editing whatever, it sounds right, but it actually nobody understood what you just said. So I would say semi-professional, I guess, when it comes to the technical aspect, and uber professional editing, because the person that works with you, it's not about the fancy, elements. It's about you as a technical founder don't necessarily have the artistic vision of all the little aspects that can be added to shave off extra 4 seconds, but still get the idea that you want to cross. From that perspective, I'm saying get a professional editor.
Nice. I'm going to throw out one thing that has been wildly helpful as a nudge with people with accents, and everyone has an accent to somebody else. The um, Having the transcript at the bottom of the screen, about 5% of our companies had that, and like, boy, it makes it easier when, you know, I'm not from the same place you're from, right? Like, I won't pretend that my accent's, awesome, but like, oh, that's what he's saying. That word right there. Yeah, it's super helpful.
Closed
Brilliant.
captions.
Yeah,
Those, yeah.
absolutely brilliant suggestion. Again, something now, yet another thing that I'm taking away from this.
All right. So normally I end with a bunch of questions, kind of rapid fire. Taylor, we decided not to do books this time. What did we decide to what was the random question we decided to ask? Do you remember? Uh-oh. I've thrown Taylor under the bus.
Uh,
Unfortunate. I thought you had the
yeah,
notes up.
no, we're under the bus. That I do not have that one in our notes.
How? Oh well. Then then Dimitri,
Sounds
why
like
don't we
book.
why don't we go with, what's your favorite book? What are you reading now, or yeah.
Oh wow, what's your favorite book? Um, I've got a lot, but I would say one that was super memorable that I read, not I mean not lately, but like some time ago. And the reason why I'm excited, yet another time excited about this, is because there's actually a movie coming out and I'm a little concerned about how they're going to get it across. But it's called Project Hail Mary, and it's by the same author that wrote The Martian,
Yep, Andrew
and
Weir. I think
Andrew
it's Andrew Weir.
Weir, exactly. And so, by the way, I try to read as soon as something of his gets published. I try to hit it right away, um, and it's a phenomenal. Like, also to me, it's an amazing storyline. It's a very unique storyline. I don't want to spoiler it for anyone who hasn't read it, but I will say that one of the things that I love most about it is the attitude of the individual in that, and it's very much aligns with as a founder. It's like, oh, oh wow, this is so bad, so bad, and then like, all right, let's start unpacking this. Like, what can we do? What can we fix? What cannot be fixed and yet need to be accepted? Like, and so that's by far same. By the way, same concept with The Martian, right? Like how the thought process behind problem solving, like very
You fix
very
a problem, you fix another one, and you fix enough of them, and you get home, right? Yeah,
exactly. It's like step by step, like baby steps, and that to me is I love his writing.
Well, I
that's
got a much
awesome.
more important question, which is what's your favorite conspiracy theory?
That's what it
Ooh,
was.
my favorite conspiracy theory. Oh wow.
Good work, Taylor.
Oh, that is a curveball.
Johnny on the
Uh,
spot.
yeah, no, I actually love this. My favorite conspiracy theory.
Don't hold back. Um,
Oh no, no, I mean, it's not holding back because I have so many. It's picking the one that is the most. That there is not a parallel universe, but there's like an underground, like pretty much world, and that there are people who live there, and that there are different entries and exits, and that if you know, you know. If not, then you know, and that and it's actually aliens, and it's being covered up, and and not being told to the public, but essentially the governments all know it. One of my favorite ones.
All right, Taylor, I'm putting you on the spot to end this thing. What's your favorite conspiracy theory?
oh, well, I'll go with I'll go with so the one that we were just talking about there, living under the mountain. That's the Lemurians, who live
so,
under Mount Shasta.
so you
Um,
do know this one.
yeah, I know it quite well, in fact. But I'm going to go with the Pleiades, which is the constellation of about, I believe it's seven sisters in the night sky, but that they were a pre-race of humans that effectively abandoned Earth and left it to us, and then have enshrined themselves in the sky, to sort of like oversee, overlook, and guide, and judge more or less. But we can thank the Pleiades for everything that we hate and love. I don't know their relation to the Lemurians, so
I feel
I
like
got to stop there.
yeah, I feel like there has to be one, and it goes through like a secret laser. I think that only the chosen ones know how to control. I don't know. That's kind of
If
like,
you know, you know. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
If you know,
simple.
you know.
Space lasers. All right. With that, I'm going to thank both of you. This was fantastic. Dimitri, thank you so much.
Thank
Taylor,
you,
thank you for joining us. Uh, it's
Happy
been
to
a
be
pleasure.
here.
You guys have a great day.
thank you.
Thank you to our audience.
Later,
Cheers.
Lucas. See you, Dimitri.